In today's video I will show you my new favorite steel non-metallic metal recipe and 3 ways to use it from easy all the way up to holy shit that looks really good.
Hey guys, I'm Zoltan and you're watching Phalanx Miniatures. If you watched the end of my last video in which I painted up one of the Ork Squig riders, I talked about how I discovered this new recipe while painting all the metallic parts of the model. The idea there was to paint something that looks like slightly corroded and worn but still shiny steel, and the end result got quite close to what I imagined actually.
I liked it so much that I thought I should perfect it rather than just come up with something new and forget about it like I usually do. And I ended up painting 3 Terminators, 2 Iron Warriors and a very metallic looking Ultramarine.
So if you want to learn how to paint non-metallic metal steel or simply want to learn this particular recipe, stay with me until the end and you can watch me paint all 3 of these models. The first one fast and cutting all the corners, then putting in some effort but still trying to be reasonable with time for the second one, and finally pulling out all the stops with the third one, going for the best non-metallic metal I'm currently capable of.
Before I move on to the actual painting, I wanted to show you the paints I will be using because I know that a lot of you just want to know the recipe. When I started painting non-metallic metal, I was also looking for this magical recipe that can just teach me non-metallic metal. But since then I learned that it's much more important to understand why those colors were chosen and then practice the technique with them than to look for some kind of magic formula.
That being said, here's the magic formula. The 3 main colors that I will be using on all models will be German Field Grey, Medium Sea Grey and Green Grey from AK Interactive. And I know what you are thinking, these are very green looking colors and they look nothing like what you see on the painted up models, but believe me, these were the ones I used, plus some even lighter universal colors like ivory and white for the highest highlights.
But let's start with the first model and let me walk you through the thinking process behind it.
As I said in the beginning of the video, I already had the colors in my head from the previous project, but this time I wanted to use them on a model that had a ton of metallic surfaces. Painting a single element like a mechanical leg is one thing, but painting a whole model like this is much more difficult. But you can also learn way more from doing it as well, so this Iron Warrior Terminator was perfect for this project. Also, when I started with the first model, I didn't know I would paint 2 more, so I just grabbed a model that lent itself to painting non-metallic metal. I simply wanted to do a quick exercise and see what I can do in a couple of hours by cutting as many corners as possible.
And cutting corners and non-metallic metal usually don't mix very well, so the next 2 are going to look much better, but sometimes you can learn much more from mistakes than from successes, so here we are.
Anyway, I wanted to make this dude look like something that is made out of metal, so he had to be somewhat shiny, but at the same time he also had to be beaten up and corroded a bit. And why? Because that's how I imagine Iron Warriors. They always trudge through some muddy trench caring more about sieging something than taking care of their gear. So the greenish colors served this purpose in my little plan. I thought they would lend themselves better for a rougher looking metal than something with a bluish cast, and the green would contrast nicely with the reddish tones of the rust and the ground I planned to use. Early on in my non-metallic metal painting career, one of the mistakes I made was to try to use some simple grays for the highlights, which looked too plain and boring and somewhat unbelievable for metal. These days I try to find something with color. Grays with greens and reds and purples or blues in them will look much better than pure grays. The large bright surfaces and high contrast we need for non-metallic metal mean that by the time everything is highlighted, all the green will mostly disappear, but it will still be present in the shadows and it will make the end result look much better.
So that's the colors, but what about the technique that I'm using to apply them?
Since I wanted to paint this first guy as fast as possible, the technique I used is also quite simple. I build up the color from the dark greenish gray all the way up to almost pure white, where I think the light should be the strongest on the metal. I'll show you an easy way to determine where those lights should be when we come to the third model, so just bear with me. The goal is to create a simple transition with a lot of contrast, so a big difference in brightness between the darkest part and the lightest part. And since I wanted to represent rough, beaten up steel, you will see me using a lot of short, scratchy brush strokes where I want the light to be. And I also make sure to highlight all the edges of the armor panels as well, since the edges of things made out of metal always catch the light and are brighter than things around them. On top of that, I will also add a lot of scratches and chips as I build up the highlights. This will make the surface look more interesting than something that is perfectly smooth, and it will also help blur the line where the 2 colors meet. If I wanted to boil the process down, it would look like this. First layer simply covers 90% of the black, leaving only some of the deepest shadows as the original black. The second, brighter layer is covering 80% of the first, and there is a scratchy transition line between the 2, plus I highlight all the edges with it too. With the brighter color, I am also creating scratches in the 20% of the previous layer that I left unpainted, to give it texture and to hide the transition line. Then I go brighter again, cover 80% of the second layer with the third, making sure that the line between them is uneven, and of course I make scratches with the new color in the 20% of the second layer that I left unpainted with the brighter color. But I don't touch what is visible of the first layer, because scratches with the bright color in the shadows would look too obvious and jarring.
Rule of thumb, you can mess with the previous color, but leave everything that you painted before alone and just consider it finished as you work your way up.
And of course, don't forget the edge highlights, but this time only highlighting the edges that point up. I continue doing this process with brighter and brighter colors and on a smaller and smaller surface until I run out of space and reach the brightest color I want to use. Those of you who have already tried painting non-metallic metal are probably thinking that I left out a couple of important things, like for example smoothing out the transitions with glazes. And you are right, but remember that I wanted to see if I can make this one quick and get away with cutting some corners. So instead of the usual glazes, I tried to apply a wash of heavily diluted black contrast paint, or more specifically Vallejo Express Color. The idea here was that the contrast paint would darken things down a bit and also blur the transition between the colors, integrating everything together. And it did that, but since I applied it over the whole surface, it also knocked back the highlights too much, even to the point where I had to reapply the same color again. I tend to use this method on smaller elements like a black weapon with highlights, for example. If you dilute it well enough, the translucent contrast will not ruin the highlights, but rather integrate them. It did that here as well, but it also messed with the highlights a bit too much to justify it for me, so I'll be using a slightly more sophisticated method for the next two models.
Alright, so I used the most basic non-metallic metal techniques, cut a lot of corners, and the first model ended up looking like this. Looks decent enough for the time I spent on it, but we can do better than this.
So let's see how I use the same paints and techniques and build on them to achieve something that looks a lot better and smoother, but still doesn't need full concentration and a ton of time. The first change is that I introduced another color into a recipe right from the get-go. Instead of starting from black, I decided to paint everything whole red first. The thinking process went something like this. The non-metallic metal on the first Terminator looked a bit too artificial to me, mostly because it didn't really reflect things around it. The greenish tint of the paints got lost in the washing stage, and the orange ground was not really reflected on the armor, even though it was relatively shiny. But I really liked how the orange rust effect I slapped on at the ends contrasted with the armor. So I wanted to use the whole red in the shadows to add more color onto the model, act as a secondary reflection, integrating the model into the environment better, and also making the non-metallic metal more complex and believable, but in a relatively easy way. This meant that the first layer that was black mixed with German field grey on the first model turned into pure whole red here. And the second layer that was pure German field grey turned into whole red and German field grey mixed roughly 50-50 on this one. All the other colors were the same otherwise, and I used the same scratchy layering technique as well, adding additional scratches into the previous layers and highlighting the edges. But I also made one more big change. I started using simple glazes between the layers to smooth out the transitions. Essentially, once I was done with painting in the highlights and the little scratches around it, I diluted the same color I used for the highlight a lot. Then I loaded the brush with this, removed most of the moisture on a paper towel, and then I dragged the remaining paint from starting in the previous darker layer towards the new brighter highlight. Getting the consistency of the paint right can be difficult for the glaze. I was aiming for something that covered enough to smooth out the line between the two paints, but something that wouldn't cover up the little scratches fully. They should still be somewhat visible under the surface. You also need to take care to remove enough moisture from the brush to not simply flood the surface with watered down paint. Ideally, it should barely make the surface wet, otherwise the lighter paint would run into the crevices and make our shadow areas lighter, destroying the contrast fully. I didn't try to go for an entirely smooth surface with this one. You can do that if you want, but that requires several layers of glazes. Instead, I was relying on the scratches, the glazes, plus having a lot of transitions in a small surface area to be enough to achieve a smoother end result than the first one. And the second model ended up looking like this.
I think it looks a lot smoother and more believable as non-metallic metal, but admittedly it also took me twice as much time to actually paint it. But we can do even better than this, so let's see what happens if I pull out all the stops and I do my very best and I also take my time doing it.
This time I decided that I would go for one of the new Terminator sculpts that we got with 10th edition. I ran out of the resin iron warrior Terminators and I have been itching to paint one of the new ones for a while, and this was my opportunity. Plus, painting a bigger model and making it look like metal is even more difficult, at least in my experience, since there is a lot more surface that needs details and highlights, but at the same time, more surface means more opportunity to paint something awesome. So the colors and the basic techniques were the same as the ones I used for the second one, but what did I do differently to make this one look better? First of all, I took a picture of the black prime model with my phone under my desk lamp. This showed me where the lights would hit the model if they came from above and slightly from the side. This might not be perfectly realistic, but it saves you a lot of thinking about where to place the lights, and most of the time it will produce a more believable end result than what I could come up with just with my imagination. Instead of just making the transitions between layers scratchy and uneven and then creating a couple of scratches on the previous layers, I went way further to blur the line between the layers. I stippled in tiny dots and scratches all around the transition lines by touching the tip of the brush lightly with very low pressure to the surface repeatedly. Instead of just random scratches, I created much more deliberate chips and scrapes in the previous layer as well to create more texture than before and masking the transitions even more. Since the surface was bigger, I also had to make bigger highlights, which allowed me another small trick. I needed to paint the highlights in multiple layers anyway to achieve full coverage, and I took advantage of this. I painted the first layer with the new color, which was most of the time not fully opaque. When I went in with the second layer, I started that layer a bit further in than the first one. This way the middle of the highlight got fully covered, but a little bit on the edge was slightly transparent, showing the previous color underneath, thereby creating a natural transition. And if that wasn't enough, I also use one of my favorite techniques these days, airbrush glazing. I told you guys we would pull out all the stops for the last one. When I was more or less happy with my transitions, I loaded the same highlight color into the airbrush, extremely diluted and with very low pressure, and used it to smooth everything out even further. Technically, you can skip this step if you are willing to do a lot more glazes by brush, but I really like the combination of smooth airbrush glazes on top and texture I applied with the brush peeking out from below. one final thing that I paid attention to much more with this one is the direction of the light and creating more contrast with it. If you look at the model, you can see that most of the brightest highlights are concentrated on his left side because that is where I wanted the light to come from. I did this on the previous models as well to a certain extent, but I made it way more dramatic and noticeable here, creating contrast not only within individual panels, but also between a darker and the lighter side of the model as well. Let's also notice two more tiny things before I show how the end result looks. I tried to make the Ultramarine shoulder pad look much more matte than the steel around it by reducing the size of the reflection on it and by also stopping at a darker highlight. This helps make the armor look shinier around it, since the shoulder pad is less shiny by contrast.
And why did I paint him as an Ultramarine instead of an Iron Warrior this time? Well, because Ultramarines are the best, and definitely not because I suck at painting hazard stripes on curved surfaces like his shoulder pad.
The second thing to notice is his autocannon. I used the exact same techniques but changed the colors to bluish grays instead of the greens. See how the end result looks quite different but still looks like the same material? Alright, so after more than 3 times the amount of time the first model took, the third one looks like this. I'm sure that in a year or so I will be able to paint something much better, but for now I love this dude. I hope you guys managed to learn something from this and maybe you got some inspiration to experiment with non-metallic metal. If you like painting models, you should give it a try at least once and you will not be able to stop after.
Thank you very much for watching, and if you like the video, you know what to do. Smash the like button and also consider subscribing. See you in the next one.